China, the bad news keeps piling on.
Where the country's rich are considering the unthinkable.
Several of China's wealthy have activated their escape plans.
They feel that they don't have a future in the country.
So the rich are seeking overseas residencies. They want to leave China.
They want to leave the country.
With their wealth, this will be the second largest wealth outflow for any country.
The question is why?
And the reason for that is Xi Jinping.
October 23, 2022. The Chinese Communist Party's highly anticipated 20th Party Congress is in the works. It's the most important meeting of the CCP's 5-year political cycle. And even though everyone is waiting with bated breath to see what happens, most people in China already had a gut feeling about what was gonna go down. And just like they feared, President Xi Jinping claims a third term of power. Xi would be in charge of China for another half a decade, and he plans to do a lot of things in these next 5 years. And Xi wasted no time. The very next day, he assigned 7 of his closest loyalists to be members of China's most powerful political body. It was a clean sweep. Xi was consolidating power. Both Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin congratulate Xi enthusiastically the moment the news breaks. But for China's billionaires, this news sent them into panic mode. One lawyer from Europe named David said that Xi extending his role past the 2-term mark was the breaking point for Chinese businessmen. Quote, now that the chairman is firmly in place, I have already received 3 proceed instructions from various ultra-high net worth Chinese business families to execute their fire escape plans, end quote. What kind of fire escape plans? Fire escape plans to leave China and take all their wealth with them. Why? Because now that President Xi secured his rule for another 5 years, he is now free to fight mercilessly to implement a new policy called common prosperity.
Since last year, he has pushed for what he calls common prosperity. The objective of this is to redistribute China's wealth for the rich. That is bad news, because they are worried about losing their fortunes.
Basically, Xi wants to go back to China's communist roots with a full-blown wealth redistribution program, the classic dream of taking money from the rich and distributing it amongst the poor. Because in Xi's eyes, the gap between the rich and the poor has gone too wide in China. And if you're a rich Chinese person and you don't comply with this wealth redistribution, well, you're gonna find yourself staring down the barrel of a gun, or you're gonna get disappeared or something. So for China's wealthy elite, this news was a nightmare. Add on top of that all the other horrible things going on in China's economy, like the severe credit crisis, especially in the real estate market, China's crackdowns on the tech sector, and the brutal COVID lockdowns, and you would be a fool to want to stay in China if you're wealthy. So your only option is to escape. As one woman who recently immigrated put it, quote, I can't change or condemn the current situation in China. And if you can't change it, all you can do is run, end quotes. The problem is, all of the Chinese Communist Party's power comes from their wealthy citizens. Rich Chinese people are the ones who create jobs, who keep the economy running. Without them, the Chinese government would be nothing more than a paper dragon. The CCP knows this, and the lengths Xi will go to keep the rich from leaving are insane.
This will be the second largest wealth outflow for any country. Russia's #1 on this list, and now China will come second.
Nowadays, a saying among Chinese people goes, the rich are either migrating or on the road to immigration.
Stay dangerous, subscribe for more, and this is the Great Chinese Exodus. One of the qualities you have to become successful is confidence. Seriously, if you don't believe in yourself, no one will. But if you're living with a big insecurity like having a lazy eye, for example, being confident is a lot more difficult. And having a lazy eye is actually very common. Around 1 to 5% of the population has a lazy eye right now. So if you don't have one yourself, you probably know someone who is suffering from this condition. The problem is surgery to fix a lazy eye is super expensive, risky, and painful. But luckily, that is where Lazy Eye Fix comes in. The revolutionary AI software that can help you correct your lazy eye from the comfort of your own home while watching Netflix or YouTube. No surgery, no high cost, no hassle. All you need is a webcam and a Mac or Windows computer. The founder of Lazy Eye Fix had a lazy eye himself, and he wanted to develop an easier, cheaper way to correct it without surgery. Lazy Eye Fix tracks the movement of your eyes, then it provides feedback whenever your eyes go out of alignment. Over time, this builds the muscle for you to be able to control your eye movements, which is one of the fundamental pillars to improving a lazy eye. Even though permanently fixing a lazy eye takes time and practice, it's common for people to see an improvement after just 24 hours of using Lazy Eye Fix. So improve your lazy eye and become more confident today by going to go.lazyeyefix.com/free-trial to try it out for free right now. That's go.lazyeyefix.com/free-trial. Thanks to Lazy Eye Fix for sponsoring this video. This is Harry Hu, a wealthy restaurant entrepreneur in China. Even though Harry is a millionaire, Harry almost starved to death during China's brutal COVID lockdowns. Imagine having millions in the bank, and yet you still can't get any food alongside the rest of the peasants. Quote, "I am very sad, but it is time to leave," end quote, he said blatantly. So he sold his stake in his 2 fancy Shanghai restaurants for $3 million, and then he hired an immigration lawyer and a wealth manager to help him get out of China as soon as possible. And then there's billionaire Yaiman Huang. Huang accumulated his $1.2 billion fortune as the founder and CEO of a video game company called XD. But despite his vast fortune, he lived in Shanghai with his family during COVID. Shanghai has some of the harshest and longest lockdowns in China. So after enduring several of these lockdowns, he couldn't take it anymore. So he sent a memo out to his company, informing his team that he was planning on leaving China with his family. He wrote, quote, "I'm preparing my family to move abroad by next year. It's still a plan though, and anything can happen in a year. I'm prioritizing my family and the business. The scale of our overseas business is only growing," end quotes. This memo was supposed to be confidential. A billionaire of Huang's magnitude taking his family and money out of China was huge consequential news that he didn't want to spread. But the memo leaked, and it quickly went viral online. Soon news of Huang's secret plan to leave the country got people talking. Huang was the first prominent person to have his escape plans exposed in such a public way, but he wasn't alone. Everyone started realizing that a lot of other crazy rich Chinese were also planning on leaving China for good. They were planning on taking all their wealth with them.
The uncertain economic climate has triggered an exodus. The numbers are serious. I have a report now from July. There are 10,000 Chinese citizens who want to leave. They are high net worth individuals, and they want to leave with their money. How much are we talking about? At least $48 billion.
But they are in for a battle because the Chinese government is going to make it as difficult as possible for them. Obstacle number 1, the $50,000 rule. China has always been careful about not letting people move money out of the country. The rules are so strict that Chinese citizens are only allowed to exchange $50,000 worth of Chinese yuan into other foreign currencies every year. Think about that for a second. You could have $500 million in the bank, but you would only be allowed to withdraw 0.01% of that every single year. Imagine if your bank limited how much money you could withdraw from it every year. That's what it's like living in China. And this $50,000 limit is very strategic, because most countries that offer passports or business visas for sale require a lot more than $50,000 to get it. In fact, it's almost always more than $50,000. For Canada, a popular place for Chinese immigrants, you need $250,000. $250,000 would take 5 years to withdraw from China. And that's just for you. That doesn't include your wife or your kids. For Spain, it takes a minimum of $500,000 to get an investment visa, which would take 10 years. And to move to the United States, it would take $800,000. For a while, Chinese people got around these rules by using cryptocurrencies. But then China banned those too. So the Chinese people are financially trapped. No matter how rich they are, if they play by the rules, they're only able to access a mid-range salary every year that isn't enough to buy them access to any other countries. Obstacle number 2, the passports. There's one thing every traveler needs to even step foot outside of their home country: a passport. And China knows that. That's why the Chinese government decided to cut back on how many passports they give out to Chinese citizens in recent years. Only 10% of China's population holds a passport, so anyone who recently got the idea to leave is out of luck. For the percentage of the population that does have a passport, the government stopped granting renewals for non-essential travel, which in the eyes of the Chinese government basically means any type of travel. There are even reports that the government is instructing immigration staff at airports to clip the corners of Chinese travelers' passports to prevent them from ever leaving the country again. No passport equals no escape from China. Obstacle number 3, the visa paperwork. If you move to a new country, you better be prepared to hand in a ton of paperwork. And where are you gonna get that paperwork? Why, from your home country, of course. China knows this. So they make it nearly impossible to gather all this information. In China, city authorities stopped notarizing birth and marriage certificates, which is usually a requirement for immigration. These are the tactics that allow the Chinese government to imprison their citizens forever.
So can these tactics stop the rich and wealthy of China, those citizens who have unlimited resources? It would certainly be tough.
But even with the thousands of obstacles in the way, rich people in China do not care anymore. They are getting their money out, and they're willing to do whatever it takes. Even though China is trying really hard to stop its billionaires from leaving the country, they are failing.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Their tactics have only made rich Chinese people more eager to leave, and they're calling in backup. Immigration consultants and lawyers said the number of relocation requests they got from Chinese citizens tripled in 2022. From 2018 to 2021, Chinese investors accounted for 93% of the approved applicants welcomed into Ireland under Ireland's Immigration Investor Program. An immigration law firm in Canada said, quote, "I would say the past 6 months people really got fed up. Our Chinese clients are willing to do relocation and they want to as soon as possible," end quotes. The moment that China lifted its lockdown measures this December, searches and keyword mentions of immigration on WeChat almost quadrupled to 110 million. People want to leave and they're scrambling to make it happen right now. They're going to Singapore, America, Canada, Australia, Japan, Spain, Portugal, anywhere that isn't China. And now is the chance they've been waiting for. China recently released its grip enough for people to start traveling, investing, and moving around again, and the country's billionaires are wasting no time. What China is doing may seem like it could never happen here, but in actuality, America is trying to do the exact same thing to its citizens right now. In fact, here's a recent bill the US is pushing to kill second citizenship. Of course, they don't overtly call it that. The bill is called something that anyone can get behind, the No Travel for Traffickers Act. After all, you wouldn't want to support traffickers now, would you? When in reality, this bill is to pressure other countries to stop offering their passports and visas for sale. That way, it can stop human traffickers, international criminals, and corrupt oligarchs from moving around. And it will also conveniently prevent American citizens from escaping the US as well. Governments need to prevent citizens from fleeing because they need you to keep slaving away for them. Because the more productive you are, the more you slave away, the more powerful the economy becomes, and thus the more powerful they become. This is how the world works. The most powerful governments and corporations need you to keep slaving away for them. And I break down this subtle modern form of slavery in a free video that you can watch by clicking the circle on the screen right now. Click the circle on the screen to watch now.